The Pier Challenge. This is Southend Pier, 1¼ miles long. Just to think, if you journey to Southend today from London by ship, such as the Waverley, you can walk up the gangway from the ship straight onto the pier. Of course, there may be a slight incline upwards or downwards, depending on the state of the tide. Once on the pier, there are cafes to stop at for refreshment, or the opportunity to maybe buy a souvenir from the lifeboat shop. This could be followed perhaps by a refreshing walk along the pier to the town, or if preferred, the possibility of riding on the pier train, whilst all the time keeping your feet dry. However, going back 190 years to when the pier was first built, travel to Southend was somewhat different. It was inconvenient and challenging, to say the least. Back in the 1830s, there was no railway line to Southend, and it took all day for a horse-drawn coach to make the journey from London to Southend overland. Horses need to be rested or changed frequently. The roads were poor. There was no street lighting, and travellers had to be wary of highwaymen and robbers who could be lying in wait. Alternatively, coming to Southend on one of the new steamers by river was also possible, but this was not an easy option for visitors with children, luggage, or the faint-hearted. The new deeper-keeled steamers couldn't approach the shore when the tide was low, so passengers had to disembark into smaller boats and be rowed to a jetty. Sometimes, though, the passengers were just literally deposited at the water's edge, and then had to make their way across the mud, again with all their luggage in all weathers, to the shore. Construction of a pier to deep water was a solution, and began in 1830. Within 18 months the first section was built, yet its length was only 1,500 feet, or 500 yards. There the pier ended, and remained in that state for nearly 16 years. Some smaller vessels could now moor alongside the so far finished pier when the tide was up, but as the tide went out and the waters receded, ships could no longer dock there. To overcome this difficulty, a docking station or landing point in deep water was needed. Firstly, a ship called the Clarence was used and moored in deep water. However, this was only a stopgap. The Clarence was followed by a wooden construction called the Mount, set in deep water. Now passing steamers could stop at any state of the tide and embark or disembark their passengers. Yet this was where another challenge began. Passengers who landed on the Mount then had to climb down steps to wait for small boats to take them a short distance to a causeway at the water's edge, and then walk again with all their luggage nearly a mile before climbing up yet more steps to get onto the so far finished pier. This could be a miserable experience in poor weather, on a causeway potholed and strewn with detritus deposited by the outgoing tide. As previously mentioned, this was the case for nearly 16 years, until the pier was extended into deep water. Looking back, it seems difficult to believe, and also fascinating to see how times have changed, and how those early pier challenges have now been overcome.